Welcome back to Cereal for Lunch, the podcast that hits harder than your Q2 churn. I'm your host, Zach Oates, on a quest for spiritual enlightenment in this
That's
SaaS
painful,
chaos. Oh, I know, right? I am joined by Brett Larson, the creator, Brandon Wright, the tactician, and Scott Smith, the sniper. Whether you're navigating layoffs, launching betas, or just wondering if that one employee is dragging the whole org down, we've got a buffet of brutal truths for you today. Let's start off with number one, surprise topic. Okay. This is not one that we discussed, but I figure since Chad isn't here, I want to talk about firing people. Okay. because we all know what Chad's answer would be to anything. So what about us though? Like, let's say that you have a B+ player, you're trying to build an A team. Who's good, who's not? Let's say that someone is mostly delivering, but mostly, quite frankly, isn't enough when you're trying to build a rocket ship. So how do you know if you have a B player that's getting their way to become an A, or if you have someone that you just need to get off the ship? And by the way, are some B players okay?
I think I'll start this one off. So I think a framework usually helps me in these situations, right? And there's one, Brett may know this framework as well, right? That I've been taught recently. It's called top grading. And you graph people on an axis. It's gonna be hard to like do it with my hands, right? But on the x-axis, you have performance. On the y-axis, you have values, like how they are with values. So if they're high performance, high values, that's in the A quadrant. If you have high values but lower performance, you'd have a B quadrant. Low in both is C player. And then someone that's high performance but low values, you'd consider a toxic A. And so if they're in one of these buckets that's not an A player, it's, okay, well, why aren't they an A player? How do I move them to an A player? So if they're a B player in that situation, right, they're good values, but their performance is lacking, then it's just about coaching. Can I get their performance up? And after some point, if I can't get their performance up, they're going to be a B player, at least in that role, in our company. So, at that point, it's probably a discussion of, how do you move on? Maybe letting them go.
How long do you keep them? How long do you give them a chance to become an A player?
Well, I mean, as like a fast growing startup, you can't give them too long, but, I don't know. Good question. I don't have an answer for that one.
I think for me, it's about becoming as objective as possible. The framework that Brandon describes, we use it as well. And I've actually made, our team knows we use it, right? And the idea is that a lot of times culture or values can feel soft. So you have to figure out
the exact things that
you have to be very defined about performance.
What does it look like to live that value?
Yeah.
Right? Like have I seen this person do X? Has this person exhibited Y? And so getting as objective as possible so you can actually, if you see them improving and they're on their way to an A, like culturally in my organizations, we don't work with C players, right? We won't, or toxic A's. And toxic A's are the hardest because the argument is you come to the table and like, but they're doing so good. You're like, yeah, but everyone hates working with them and no one enjoys coming to work.
Okay, wait. What about the flip side of a toxic A? What about because there's a toxic A where people hate working with them, but then there's a toxic A where they get their work done, but they also don't work hard. You know what I mean? Like they do enough to stay on, and everybody loves them. And the reason they put up with a bunch of stuff that might not be, typical A player work is because people love them, but you'll let things slide for them because
we just went through this actually. So the question is, what do you want to allow for your culture in your company? Because we had some people on our team where they weren't toxic in the sense of people hated them, but they were toxic in the sense that they were not living our cultures, and we let things slide with them that we wouldn't think we would let slide with other people. And we did it for too long. I actually just went through the process of letting some people go for, that reason. What happened though what I saw over time is we recognized that early on, and what we should have probably done was gotten rid of them sooner, because they drug the entire company down. And at some point they went from toxic A to C because they stopped performing as well. And then people around them stopped performing. People around them didn't want to be part of it. And we went through some employee churn because of it. So I think in the moment they're toxic A, but as time goes on, they move towards C, and I think they actually drag people down to a C player.
I think there's another part of this too, where let's say you made the hire, one of your managers made the hire. And I think a lot of the time, at least for me, I know very quickly if it was the right person or the wrong person. And all of that effort that we
Scott, like when you say that, like what are the indicators that are showing you that?
I think it's like, did they do anything in the first week, the second week, the first 90 days that was impactful? Obviously we have different time horizons depending on how big of a company, but a lot of the time I can feel and I can see that I know that I need to make the decision, but then I wait a while. And I think a lot of the time we're doing that because we made the first mistake of hiring them and we basically made a mishire. And then we're trying to fix it by giving them more time, and we're giving them all the benefits of the doubt. And there's got to be something there that's like, I made a mistake, and so I'm trying to not admit that I made a mistake or something. But
or it's like for me, what I find is just the thought of going through the hiring process again will prevent me from doing it. Right, early on in my marriage, my wife and I made a pact that moving would never be the reason that we don't move. Does that make sense? Meaning that, like, if we wanted to move someplace, we could list the pros and cons, but in the con list cannot be the actual effort of moving. Because what I didn't want to happen is, like I saw with, a lot of probably our parents' generation, is they get a house, they put a bunch of stuff in that house, and then they never move because the effort of moving is so great that it keeps them in their house, even if it's not a good financial decision, even if it's not a good social decision, even if they want to go somewhere else and get into an RV and travel the country, for example. It's just, and it's the same thing with what I found with letting people go, is like the effort of letting them go and finding someone new, and the hit it would take to your company seems to be so much. But the thing that is I have seen over and over and over again, and yet I don't learn the lesson, is it's always better. It is always better after that person goes.
I think you have to figure out a way to become extremely objective. And one of the conversations I have when we're hiring people now, I didn't do this at eVisit, but I do it with Chief, is I'm like, hey, this is a startup, it's early stage. I might have to let you go. And it may be because you're not performing. It also may not have anything to do with that. And it's like putting the reality out on the table and then describing to them, like, here's exactly what I expect from this role. And I think
really, so when someone comes in, you say, you don't have job security?
First day, first meeting with them.
No, before we even offer them
before
the
you
job.
hire them.
Before we offer, because here's the thing, like, if you can't live with the idea that you may not be at this organization in 3 to 6 months, it's probably not a good fit, because like there's so much volatility.
But does that need to be said though? I mean, isn't the fact that like you're a startup kind of like,
I found people actually find it somewhat comforting. Like, you put the issue out on the table, and if it scares them away, they don't have what it takes to be in an early stage company, period. Like, because the reality is, like, I may not have a job in 6 months if this business isn't going the direction it needs to go. Like,
well, every quarter we have, well, maybe not you, Brett, but for the rest of us, every quarter is a job interview when we have our board meetings, right?
For sure, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. It's like, I feel like it's implicit that when you join a startup, you are performance oriented. And if you are not performing, you are going to be let go. So I actually disagree with the idea of explicitly reminding them, like, hey, this week you better work really hard.
I don't like every week in the all hands and like, hey, you might get fired this week. Let's just watch. Like it's like the first conversation.
Everyone, collective
probably
sigh,
does,
you
though.
have a job.
Hey,
Chad
one of
does,
the biggest
definitely.
mistakes
Chad for sure does.
I made. One of the biggest mistakes I made is not like
Joining this podcast. Oh, no.
creating
Okay.
it actually.
Okay, that's right.
Like,
Sorry.
I'm working through.
He founded this podcast, guys.
Sorry.
No, we founded this podcast. One of the biggest mistakes I made at eVisit was like believing everyone had this similar personality to me. They'd be like, "What's the goal?" And I'd be like, "Just try as hard as you can. Like do as much as you can." And so no one knew where the bar was at. And it took me a couple of years to figure out that like most people need to know where the bar is. And once they do, they will reach that bar or they won't. But knowing where, and part of the reason it's hard to set a bar at a startup is like, I don't know what's possible. We
Right.
we don't have messaging market fit. We don't have product
Yes.
market fit. We don't have, and so I think it's critical. That is our role as leaders, whether you're the CEO or a COO or a director of whatever, or a head of this, is to set the bar and to like help the team collaborate to figure out how to get there and then to measure.
Yeah.
Right. And so I found like when you're looking at someone and whether or not they have a role in the organization, don't make it personal. But I found that if they're top of mind for me week after week after week, it doesn't bode well. If I find that I have to, and I think it's probably individual, if I find that I'm managing them consistently, it's probably not a good fit. And I tell the team that too. And they come out, I'm like, I'm not a good manager. I think I'm a decent leader. Your job is to manage me, my expectations, my like come to me, hold yourself accountable. If you find that I'm doing that, then we're probably moving in a direction where this just isn't a good fit. And there's nothing wrong with that. It might be a terrific fit at Apple or Amazon or
Yeah.
some other large organization.
Well, and that's one of the things that like I love Mr. Beast when he lets people go. He's like, he goes, I hire good people. Like they're good people. They just might not be a good fit for here. And so I help them find something else, which I think is great. But I also feel like as we are looking at like Brandon and Brett, the matrix that you talked about, I think is so powerful to understand exactly what it is in each quadrant, right? And like what does on the values, what does it look like going up? On the performance, what does it look like going right? And like really defining that, because I found that
You have to define it.
well in dating, in business, in friendships, it all comes down to expectations. How well are they communicated? How realistic are they? And in the business world, we have the opportunity to provide people with tools, with information, with guidance to help them be more successful and to be able to like give them the tools to succeed. But if someone doesn't believe that they have the tools to succeed, or even worse, to your point, Brett, if they don't know what success looks like, then how are you going to judge them? How do you know if they're an A or B player? And so for me, I think as I've been doing a lot of thinking, I love this rubric, totally taking that back. But one of the things is like, what is an A player? And I think that's really where I want to get better at, is making sure that they understand what does done look like, what does great look like, and do they have the tools and the time to get there? Because you gotta have both sides of that.
And one last thought here that Scott and Brett kind of brought up as well, right? But there's a CEO. He went into a board meeting and was talking about how this new executive that he hired had leveled everybody up, and how he now, as the CEO, who was this young CEO, had started, basically leveling himself up. And a board member made the comment of like, I forget that you don't know what excellence looks like, or you don't know what the potential looks like yet, right? And I think about that a lot, where both with myself and with other people, it's like the people that we hire, are they lifting us up? Are they actually better? Like, is it giving us this new view into what excellence could look like? And same with our employees, right? Like, they think the bar is here, but if we hire someone where that person's bar is here, all of a sudden everyone else sees this new height that they could reach. And I think that's important too.
Yeah, I think at Amazon they actually have this concept of a like bar setter. So you are basically evaluating like, is this person going to set the bar at or higher than the previous our current team is. And I think that's actually a pretty interesting way to think about it. Exactly as you're describing, Brandon. It's like, is this person going to like set that goal a little higher? Are they going to push a little harder? Is this person going to, make me nervous, almost a little bit concerned every day I come into work that he's going to steal my job, or, not really, but like do everything better and make me feel like I need to work harder.
Yeah, I love that. And I think this is actually one thing that PwC, I felt like did really, really well, because I did consulting with PwC, and they had a matrix, and it was basically like at every level, they showed what is a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 basically like level person do. And so you were able to see exactly based on where you were at, what was expected of you. And actually I got a performance review that was a 4. And I went to my manager and I sat down with him, and he gave me a 4 out of 5. And I said, can I ask you, why did you give me a 4 out of 5? And they're actually really, really good at PwC at like having these meetings and making sure that they understand why you got the score that you did and discuss it. And he's like, well, because you're not doing these things. I was like, I get that. But based on this rubric, those things are the expectations of a manager. And I know that I'm acting as a manager, but I'm a senior associate right now, which means I should be doing these things. He goes, you know what? You're right. And he gave me a 5. And I think
you should have been like, I give you a 3 for not being great at knowing what. One other heuristic.
Oh man,
Right.
because
Hold on.
that was the perfect segue into this
Oh,
next
no, but
topic.
segues-
Okay, go ahead, and I
quick.
was trying to segue with
hey,
the
segue.
consulting.
Brett
story.
has the last word.
All right,
so.
Brett, go ahead.
No, I
Brett.
don't.
You're the founder. You get the last word.
No. One of the best yardsticks I heard, which is like more of a feeling, is gauge, like, is the business pushing them or are they pushing the business? Curtis Anderson, CEO of NERSA, founder of NERSA, we were to dinner and like we had the same conversation, and someone asked it, and he was like, I find that if you're watching a team, is the business pushing them or are they pushing the business?
There we go. Cross stitch that and put that on your break room pillow.
Yeah.
I love that.
If the business is pushing them, it's probably time to change roles or move out of the business. You should, especially in the leadership position, you should have people who are constantly pushing the business. Like they need to be able to run ahead of the business, or the business, like business growth, there's a direct correlation to leadership capacity. Like how fast can the leader run? How fast can the company grow? And then consultants. What about consultants?
Okay,
Segue.
well, back to my perfect segue about my story of consulting.
Sorry.
Is this the white collar apocalypse? So we talked about some breaking news that McKinsey just laid off 10% of its workforce, the biggest cut in its 100-year history. Thanks to a consulting slowdown that's so sharp, it could write its own case study. And it's not just them. AI is cutting the bottom rung. Entry-level jobs things are becoming, they're leaving. So what's happening with the white collar career ladder? Are we entering like a whole new realm where there's no more entry-level consulting jobs because all of that's too easy? All of it's being done by AI. What happens to the consulting world?
Well, I mean, let me ask this, right? You mentioned entry level is being done by AI. Doesn't that just mean entry level becomes some other bar, right? I mean, was it the McKinsey CEO who was saying like 95% of a S1 perspectives can be written by AI, but it's the 5% that matters. It's not like that 5% is
entry level
gone.
people can't do that 5%. They don't know what that is. Entry level people were doing all the 95%, and then the directors and the managers were coming in to do the 5% because they were the ones who have the business acumen. But when AI is doing all this grunt work, you don't have people that could then become the managers and directors. Like where do they? You don't come out of MBA school understanding how to do the last 5% of an S1.
I mean, it's obvious you have to know how to use AI like in the workforce. If you're coming in the workforce right now, like one of the questions we've started asking everyone in our interviews is, how is AI going to change your role, and how would you use AI in your role going forward?
And then they say, that's a good question. I think that I would do this.
Hashtag emoji.
M dash.
hyphen long dash.
I think
It seems like with the consulting, I don't know. Zach, you may have a better perspective, but is this the type of business that frequently would throw people at a problem?
Yes.
And now they can throw intelligence at a problem? I mean, like you had these people who just out of pure intelligence, hunger, time, energy, ability to travel, like they could be there and then they could help you solve your problem. Now there's a tool that sits next to you. So I don't know if it's like a long-term problem or it's a short-term thing where we're realizing that MBA, that McKinsey consultant, myself as the CEO, like I can just ask a chatbot and get the answers I need. I did this morning. I was looking at a legal clause that I needed to put in. I said, give me some examples of this. I found 5. I inserted it, and I'll probably get it, validated by my lawyer. But like again, the lawyer is like the last 5%. But I'm not sure where it goes or how it's going to get better for that entry level.
I think one of the questions is like, what is the work product of a consultant? It is usually a PowerPoint based off of a whole bunch of aggregated data and analysis of a specific issue. And so how much value is that? And it takes 6 to 8 weeks on the short end, and it's a year on the long end. So now again, our role with AI is like arbiters of quality and accuracy. So now if we have data, and by the way, like it's accessible in droves, we just haven't had the time to analyze it. And you can channel any expert you want to. I did a post on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago about like 3 jobs that would have cost us probably collectively $2 million in a year of work, right? Like a huge architectural analysis and like plan for how to get a specific feature to work behind the scenes, a pricing analysis, and like a bottoms up, top down pricing analysis on what the market can bear for our product. And then the third one was a go-to-market, like top to bottom go-to-market analysis of messaging and whether or not it's aligned to the buying stages. I did those. Collectively, it probably took me 30-ish hours, right? I would have paid a consultant for each one of those things to, frankly, overanalyze it for our stage. And so I think the work product, consulting needs to change. They need to either start getting to work, not just suggesting work. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that it matters what's going to happen in consulting necessarily, right? It's entry level jobs is what we're talking about here. Because you've got BCG on the other hand, who's actually hiring, right? Like increased hiring, right? And so it's like, I don't know, who knows? But like, isn't this the same conversation that people have been having
about
like
horses?
Every couple of decades when some new technology comes out. Like the internet comes out and it's going to, there's no more entry level jobs. And I look at like Gauntlet AI. Do you guys know Gauntlet AI? Mm-hmm. It's run by Austin Allred and it's like,
oh yeah.
It's like AI school for AI basically. Like, and they go in and it's like 6 weeks, just intense learning. And then they go out into these into these jobs or into these companies and to become these AI developers, right? Or whatever. But it was interesting. Like one thing that he mentioned is people are hiring the Gauntlet AI grads to go in and rebuild like internal SaaS tools that the business uses, so they no longer have to pay the SaaS fee, right? Like that's something that we never would have thought. Like an entry level person.
Give me an example.
Like rebuild just a CRM internally using AI that fits your needs specifically, so that you don't have to go buy Salesforce anymore.
It's the same thing that the CEO of Klarna and his team did. They let go hundreds of support people, built their own software, and then they came back like 6 months later and they were like, oops, maybe that was a little too aggressive.
Well, right. Like, and the question is like Klarna was like on one extreme, right?
Totally.
But I think it was like, I think the idea here is the entry level jobs are going to change. Like it's going to be different. Like, and we may not even know what those entry level jobs are going to be in the next, decade, but AI is going to be part of it. We need to make sure that we know how to use AI, especially if you're brand new to the workforce. But
I did see I can't remember the reference, but it was basically highlighting that for new engineering graduates, their unemployment rate was double this is like recent, double the rate of like an art history major. So I think maybe in the short term there's this challenge of like,
is that because all the art history majors are trust fund kids and
No,
they just go
like-
work for their mom and dad?
There's like three
those
art
those
like
art
three
museums
art
are hiring a
history-
ton
like
right
three
now.
art history graduates. This is like that's why.
Art history. Those are people that you don't. Those are people that you marry if you're, like looking for a good time. Not the kind of people that you look for job
Art
security
history
for.
majors, like those are the good time.
Oh yes, are you kidding me, dude? Art history majors, they are like some of the funnest people. No,
How
no.
many do you know?
All right, unpopular opinion. All right, fine. I take it all back. I'll be so disappointed with my kids if they're art history
that's
majors.
wild, though,
is that
Scott.
what
I
you
mean-
want me to say?
No, I on Scott's point about the like that's pretty wild.
yeah, and there's a similar metric that shows the rate of, I mean, this is kind of like coming back to baseline, but the rate of hiring pre-pandemic, 2020, it was like it's skyrocketing growth specifically for remote. And now it's coming back to like 20% rather than 40%. So I just honestly, I think, Brandon, you're right. I think there's just a lot of change. There's a kind of a new construct. We're figuring it out. And there's actually a lot of CEOs who are also trying to figure out like, what's the market going to look like in 12 months? And they're not sure. So they're not necessarily going to hire, or they're still thinking about hiring. They're still building their plan out. I mean, a lot of the people
Scott,
who do
what are your-
earnings, same thing.
What are you telling your kids to study? Or what are you recommending your kids study?
I'm still in the age of like, I just hope that they are excited to learn and to read, and that's it.
I actually like. I wonder how valuable a college degree or a college education. I wondered it when I was going through college. I can't think of any hard skills I learned during my undergraduate that.
But that's not the value that, in my opinion, that's not the value that college brings, right? The value
What is it?
that college brings it's a network for you. It's a work ethic for a lot of people. And it's also a filtering mechanism so that
It's a
you're
club.
filtering down people to say like, hey, if they got
Can you
into
do
this
hard
college, then, they're at
it
least
has
to a certain
been.
quality.
It has been, but I think the currency, like the professional currency going forward, like college, like I think it still may matter for like bankers or maybe the consultants that do get jobs, but like the currency in the average organization now is like, what's your skill set? What can you do for the business? What can you produce? What can you, for like my background is in marketing. I didn't learn any hard marketing skills at the great Arizona State University. Actually, that's not true. I had one course. that was
Devils.
incredible. Go Devils. I had one course that was extremely practical, and it was taught by a guy who owns an agency like that. Their clients are like Coca-Cola and Kroger, but he taught us very practical marketing skills. The rest of them were all like theory, product, place, pricing,
Promotion, post-service.
promotion. It's like those are like if you're going to go start a business and you don't think of those things naturally. I don't know. And to be fair, I didn't use I went to school, came home, went to work. Like I started a business during my undergrad. I wish I'd used college to build a network. I didn't.
That's pretty much all I did. I don't think I learned very much in college, but I met a lot of people. And
How many dates?
But
let me
even
see,
still, Brett.
There's a ground.
But even still, Brett, like you went to college, and if you were looking for some job outside of school, you were looking in places of people who were coming to that college. That's a network. Like that's your network. There are people that are like, yeah, I like ASU grads. Maybe I'm an ASU grad, so I want to hire ASU grads.
Do we know?
I'm not.
Is that something
No.
we have in common? Oh,
I'm not.
no.
But
I
but
mean, I
like,
get it, but I don't-
I also
the
I also
value
think
going
like there's
forward-
like now is just a weird time because like I actually heard the stat this morning on the news podcast, right, where it's the companies are firing more right now than they have been in the past. Like a lot of people are getting let go, but they're finding jobs faster than they ever have. Like more companies are opening up jobs. So things are just like shifting a ton right now. And there's a lot of short-term, like just churn in the water. And it is pretty crazy. But
I've like for a long time been really frustrated with the college education experience, right? Like it's a club. And had I known that when I was getting prepared to go to college, I would have tried a lot harder so I could have gotten into a better club, or the best club I could find. But I just don't think it. I don't.
Yeah, but we're entrepreneurs. I mean, we're entrepreneurs, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, if we're talking to entrepreneurs, CEOs, that the like, it's like go start a business. Like like use college,
and then get your own club. Like find like-minded people who are also doing startups around you, and like learn from them. Like we do here, right?
Go shop at Buc-ee's and. Yeah.
Well, I feel like with you guys most of you guys most of the time I feel like the student, but
not this last conversation is that
unless we're talking about RVs.
Like if you going back to the question about college, if you look at a lot of the for-profit schools, the ones that they're trying like
Go
online
Trump
university. Yeah, sure. I think one of the areas for a long time that people looked at those schools to evaluate and consider whether or not they should go is whether or not you got a job afterwards.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of these companies, a lot of these universities for a long time and for quite a while, their matriculation, their graduation rate was high, but like the rate at which people found jobs was pretty low. And so I think eventually those universities just got self-selected out of people wanting to go to them. On the other hand, I think to Brandon's point, network, work ethic, checkbox, like with my kids, I'm absolutely at least going to say, hey, if you want to go do HVAC or plumbing or technical, that's amazing. And that's good work. I think there's been a long history of people looking at those types of roles very differently. And I think it's just all about like the potential of the kid, the likelihood of, the opportunity at the time. I think I went to BYU and I studied econ. I learned how to use Excel and spreadsheets and all this kind of stuff. But like, could I have done that through YouTube? Absolutely. But yeah, it was network, work ethic, checkbox. Can you do hard things?
Yeah.
We'll
and
see
for
where
me,
that goes.
For me, it was about dating, honestly. Like I went to BYU because I wanted to date. And, I did my MBA there because it was so cheap and because they were the only ones that would accept me. But it was so cheap and my GMAT was so low that I had to go. But it was just one of those things where it was like, I totally agree that the network was the most valuable thing that I got out of school. And even though during my MBA, it was less about the network I got at my MBA, it was the network I got after my MBA that was extremely helpful for me. Like that set me up for a job. And speaking of jobs, like Steve Jobs, someone else that's really a standout person in the world of entrepreneurship is Elon Musk. And Elon Musk just rage quit Doge, like really bizarrely, just totally he didn't just like walk away. He didn't just like finish his 130 days or whatever. I mean, like he left in a fury, and his posts on X were just like, giving up on fixing
my job. I'm
going
to burn this mother down.
So I mean, like, but think about this though. If he has given up on the government and fixing it from the inside out, what does that mean for the rest of us in terms of like our next few years? The government is, to me, I looked at Elon as like, hey, he's someone who can come in there and actually help the deficit and actually change something. And if he can't do it, is anyone ever going to do it? And then what does that mean for like the future of our startups?
Yeah, I saw a really interesting post on X where, they were talking. It was someone commenting on an article talking about how Elon, left Doge, and this guy made this comment and said, basically, Elon went in to try and cut spending, figured out he's not going to be able to cut spending in the government, and realized the only way to save the United States of America is to grow the GDP faster than the government can spend it. And so like this guy made this commentary on it, and then Elon replied to it and said true. And like it's like, so it was really interesting that like
It's
seems like
easier
Elon's
to grow GDP than it is to cut spending.
yeah, essentially is what he was saying is like, yeah, I'm going back to try and grow GDP at this rocket ship pace because I have to do that to outgrow the spend of the government, which is, I mean, that's crazy and a little scary.
Wait, by the way, quick aside, do you realize that our kids, like when someone our age slips up and says something about, oh, he tweeted something, that's going to sound like, oh, put in the 8-track, like it's going to sound like so old when we say tweet.
I still call it Twitter.
I mean, I was very careful in that. In what I had just said, I was
impressed,
so close to saying tweet.
I was like, wow, this guy, he's hip. He's with it. He didn't even slip up and say post. He just said a post on X. Good for you.
There's part of me I really wanted it to work, but I'm not totally surprised. Like, first of all, you put like Donald Trump and Elon Musk, two like massive egos, and I'm a big fan of Elon. Like, what his ability to execute like seemingly impossible companies, but multiple at a time, even as the visionary with operators behind him, is like truly incredible. And I thought, if anyone can fix the deficit, this guy can do it. But I'm not totally surprised. Like, the inertia around just like the social pressure, I don't care who you are. It's got to get to you, right? Like,
what about Vivek? Can we bring in a backup now? Can we bring Vivek back?
Right. But like, to that end, like it's really frustrating because I do think we're in a pretty precarious situation as a nation.
And I don't understand, how do we, like, we're still, the ceiling just got raised again in this big beautiful bill, and how does this help? I thought the whole thing was he was gonna like stop the craziness.
Well,
anyone?
Going back to Elon just for a second, I think the thing that so I have a friend. He's the CEO of a pharmaceutical company based in San Francisco Bay Area, and
wait, like a real pharmaceutical company, or is this like a pharmaceutical company in the tenderloin of SF?
No comment.
Please say the second one.
Yeah, absolutely the former. But so he actually applied for and joined Doge. He worked there for a few months, and he and I had a Signal group chat, one of those disappearing messages. And like, the main thing that he told me was
this
limitations.
No, it was like the intensity is really high, but like the ability to make change was in a situation where like your hands are tied behind your back. You can't go and touch the golden goose, the big piece, the big parts, and you just have to kind of chisel off something
around the edges.
AI. Yeah, exactly. So I think, like, to start, you had a scenario where the leader, effectively Elon, was in an environment where he could not break the rules, which traditionally that's what he does. He finds a way to go around, circumvent, break the rules, do it his way. And he shows up. He actually has the president who's supporting him, but he still needs Congress and the House.
Due process.
No, it just shows how hard it is. I mean, and for someone who does hard things relentlessly, like, this was a big challenge, clearly.
I mean, there's definitely a culture thing in there too. I have a buddy that after college went and worked for the government. It was like Medicare, Medicaid, one of those two. I always get those two mixed up.
You care for the elderly?
Medicaid. I don't know. Either way, he worked for one of those, right? And he was working. He came in out of college, working really hard, wanting to make an impact. And then his manager got promoted, and so it opened up a spot, above him in management. And he applied and didn't get the position. And the feedback he got on why he didn't get the position was because he worked too hard, and they were afraid of what type of culture that would create for everybody else in the department that was over him. Like, that was the reason he didn't get the manager position. And it was like, I mean, there's a culture in the government of like,
too pretty to be a model.
I mean, there's this culture there, right? There's this culture there of like, we can't fire anybody, and we're just providing these jobs for people, and and like, it's hard to change that, man. Really hard to change that.
I want to add one as supporting. I don't know, anecdote, but like really quick, Cloud App Zeit, we did a government accelerator back in 2017. I literally lived in Washington, D.C. for like 3 weeks. It was probably ill-conceived, but anyway, we learned how to sell to the government. And the same thing kept happening. They would say in every pitch, you will not and cannot mention anything about cutting jobs. And I was always like, what? Why? But that was the thing. That was the main thing.
So what does that mean for us as founders here, wrapping this up? Brandon, what's the hot take? What do you think? Elon leaving, does that change anything for us, our future? What are we thinking about?
Well, I think that idea of trying to grow GDP is the way you Elon sees is getting out of this. I think to me has kind of shifted my thinking of like, man, should I just be heads down? Like, should I even care about policies and, all of that? Or should I just be heads down trying to grow my business, which is what I do anyways. I actually don't really care about government. Maybe I shouldn't say that very much, but like, politics, I just don't get in. I don't like it.
Focus on what you can control, right?
But yeah, focus on what you can control, and just go heads down trying to build your business and stuff's going to happen around there, but stuff has always happened around us.
I think public service is one of the biggest grifts ever, right? Like in what world should a lifer, like someone who's always been in public service in the government, be a multimillionaire ever, right? Like how is that possible based on the salaries they receive? And so I focus on what you can control, right? Like, and we can control the growth of our business, like the security that creates for us and our teams. And I think that's what Elon ultimately figured out is like, I actually have the skill set to grow things that can have like universal, like literally universal impact. And I can't move an inch in like cutting $1 billion a day out of our budget. Like, what does that do? Nothing. That's crazy.
Well, especially if they're going to say, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do 1 trillion. It's like whatever the number you cut, they're going to 10x or 100x. Yeah. That becomes problematic and very hard.
Yeah. Love it. Well, I think bottom line here is that we should each focus on our own GDP, which is great dang product. Right?
I just came up with that. Yeah.
That's impressive.
Thank you.
By the way, I think, Zach, it would be really cool if we had a separate podcast where we like asked you questions like Medicare versus Medi-Cal versus, and you just have to like guess. I think there's an audience there.
It could be the bedtime podcast.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, team. So whether you're managing mediocre talent, navigating the consulting collapse, or wondering if DC is worth your roadmap slide, just remember, smash that like button, send this to your No Filter co-founder, and as always, cereal for lunch, part of your balanced startup.